Good evening. Good evening. Greetings. Good day. Good day. Good evening. Good afternoon. Midwife Sakina here. As I said earlier this week, or maybe it was last week, that I would be going live every Tuesday and Thursday. I'm trying to be consistent with that. So, welcome to my live. I am Midwife Sakina Oyuhuru. So, welcome to the live this evening, which we're going to try and wait for more folks to enter. And hopefully, we'll have an interactive session this evening. This evening, we're going to talk a little bit about home birth, how to prepare for it. If you're considering it, some things or some tips that might support your journey and how to navigate uh, through this new pathway that you are embarking upon. So, good evening again. If you're just now joining us, I am Midwife Sakina Oyuhuru, and I am a home birth midwife. And I have been practicing the art of midwifery for almost 30 years. And I am here tonight to share some jewels, some tips for those of you who are interested in considering a home birth if you're expecting. If you're a partner who's thinking about it and wants some more information, I just wanted to drop a couple of tips, some jewels, some things that might help you as you navigate through. Just going to wait a little while to see if a couple of folks will join us. And while we're waiting, I just want to talk a little bit about some of my upcoming events. If you are interested in learning the pathways to practice the art of midwifery, we will be holding a free webinar next Thursday evening at 7. And that link is listed in my bio on Instagram at Gentle Spirit Birth and also at A Woman's Way, AWOMBMANSWAY. So the link is in my bio, so you can register for that webinar, which again, we'll be talking about the pathways to midwifery. And the reason why we are hosting that webinar, which we are going to continue to host more webinars because of the incredible amount of confusion that exists around education or educational pathways to midwifery, and then the different types of midwives: traditional midwife, certified professional midwife, certified midwife, direct entry midwife, certified nurse midwife. And so we wanted to give some more clarity around those pathways, what it actually entails. And so that webinar, again, is next Thursday evening at 7. And again, the link is in my bio on my social media platforms. Those handles on Instagram are Gentle Spirit Birth and A Woman's Way, spelled AWOM, like Mary, B boy, and Mary, A, like Apple, and Nancy, as Sam, WAY, A Woman's Way, at A Woman's Way, and at Gentle Spirit Birth for that link to register for the webinar. So I am live tonight. I wanted to discuss a couple of, I want to say, jewels, tips for expectant couples, people, expectant parents who are thinking about considering an out-of-hospital birth. You know, what exactly does that mean? And why would I even embark upon that? And so, talking a little bit about the benefits, I was trying to wait for a couple of people to enter. And maybe give it a couple more minutes. And while we're waiting, I'm going to introduce myself once more and talk a little bit about our upcoming events again. So, next Thursday evening at 7 p.m., we're going to host a webinar, and the webinar is free. You must register in advance. You will find the link for that registration in my bio on my handles, Gentle Spirit Birth and A Woman's Way on Instagram. And we will probably have a couple more webinars similar to that one because it's going to take more than one webinar to talk about all the pathways and what is exactly involved in applying for those particular schools or that particular pathway in terms of boards, in terms of the emotional I want to say breath that it's going to take, on the mental capacity. So we want to get into it, right? Delve right on in it so people can really get a sense and make really an informed decision, particularly those who think they have been called to this work. So, and so much information is spinning around out there and so much misinformation as well. And so we want to give some clarity. All of our webinars are about empowering, inspiring, and encouraging individuals in the birth space. We're all about promoting and advocating for reproductive justice, birth justice, and about empowering people around their bodies, their pregnancies, and their babies. It is all about you. And so tonight we're going to talk a little bit about home birth. And as I said earlier, I have been practicing in this space for almost 30 years. It is something I am passionate about. It is my purpose in life to offer home birth as an option for those who are interested in having the most, I want to say, powerful, profound, transformative, joy-filled, healing, sacred pregnancy, labor, birth experience. And for me, this is one of life's most, I want to say, pivotal moment in a woman's life and a couple's life and a person's life. And so it is transformative and it will impact you in so many aspects of your life. Birth impacts birthing people in different components of their lives. And if they have a very powerful and empowering labor birth experience, it really, I want to say, encourages you in so many different, I want to say, areas of your life. And so it is a memory that you hold on to forever. So you're impacted generationally, not only you, but those who are also present during this monumental moment. So one of the things that I would definitely suggest is to do your due diligence in terms of research. If you are considering a home birth, you are thinking hiring a midwife, or maybe you're thinking about doing it yourself. So I'm going to stick with hiring a midwife for tonight. And so we can talk about the other kinds of out of hospital births, birth center birth, unassisted birth during maybe my live on Thursday. So if you're considering a home birth, one of the things you want to think about is why. What is your why, right? What is your reason for being, your reason for embarking on this path? And how committed are you to this decision? How committed? Are you on the fence? Are you, just on the surface, just dipping your toe in, not totally vested? Where are you in this process? Because that will drive your next steps. If you are not sure and you're just thinking about it, it's a thought, then I would say that you might want to maybe listen to some videos, uh, look at some videos. You might want to read a little bit more on home births, and what part of it are you unsure about? Is it your uncertainty around space? Is it your uncertainty around the type of practice that's going to support you? Is your uncertainty about, can you have it in your home? Is your uncertainty about supplies? So it's like try to identify the areas of concern, because once you do that, then it kind of drives your next steps. So that's where I would start. Um, and so then once you decide or you figure out how vested you are, if you're 150% sure, that's my gauge. If you're at that level of commitment, then I would say interview midwife practices. Um, and then, think about who are you, philosophically? What are you aligned with? And what are some things that are really, really important to you to take place during the labor birth? And or what are some things that you definitely do not want to happen to take place? So, what am I referring to really? So, there are so many levels to this, and I can talk forever and ever and ever about it, but let's stick with your commitment. So, once you're 150% certain that this is the direction you want to go in, really connect with how are you sitting philosophically. So, why am I saying that? What am I getting at? Like, what's your not only what your drive is, but what is your cultural belief system? And is that what's going to drive the type of practice or midwife you are seeking? So, for example, if you are a very religious person, let's say you are a Christian, and so maybe that is really important to this process. So then I would say do some due diligence in identifying a practice that might be aligned with you religiously, or are you looking for someone who identifies with your sexual orientation, or someone who is racially, ancestrally connected to how you identify yourself? Like, are you African American or Black American or Indigenous, Native American? Are you looking for a midwife that is aligned in that area? And it's okay, because one of the most important things is really being honest with yourself and really, really connecting with those parts of you that you feel are going to add value to the pregnancy, labor, birth experience, because it will. And so being connected to that, being honest with yourself about those parts of you, and whether it's important to choose a midwife that identifies with you philosophically, with your cultural belief system or religious, or your religion. So that to me is, I want to say, fundamental. You always want to choose someone who you can identify with that can help build this trust currency. And so that might make it easier for you, that you have some identifiable, or you're aligned in those areas that are important to you and your lifestyle. Um, I see this in the background, it's kind of bothering me. So that is important, and that can drive the direction of your research. So that's one. And so then once you identify a practice, a midwife, based on those things, those value systems that are important to you, then you have your interview process. And so I would suggest that not only do you interview on the phone, in terms of what are you hearing, you know, and what you're hearing, does that resonate with your spirit? And I mean by what are you hearing? Because some people are very sensitive to intonations or the sound of someone's voice. Does she sound welcoming? Does she sound busy? Does she sound hurried? Does that person sound like they are giving you the time that you need so that you can make a healthy decision? because this is monumental. So you want to make sure that you choose someone that is aligned with your value system. So first of all, you need to know what that is. And then you need to, I would say create a questionnaire, so to speak, or questions that you might want to present during this exchange, because not only are you interviewing them, they're interviewing you as well. So, jot down those questions ahead of time based on your value system or your, philosophy around birth. So, and then well, let me add to that. When you are identifying these practices, um, make sure that you interview at least, I want to say 2 to 3, maybe 4, at least 2. And then you compare. And your comparison should be based on how they respond to those questions. And then you can, prioritize those questions and responses that you feel are more important to you. Um, because again, this is an individual that's going to be intimately involved in your life. So you want to choose someone that you can connect with based on the interview. Now, let me also say that sometimes you think you chose the right practice or the right midwife, and things go awry, or not so much awry. They just go in a different direction than you expected. There's nothing wrong with being forthcoming with how you feel. And I want to say most midwife practices, most home birth practices are set up that way in terms of if things are not going in the way that they feel they are, or the midwife feels that she's not serving you best, or you feel like she's not serving you best. I think it's important to have that conversation. I think I want to go in a different direction. And you can choose those kinds of words, that kind of language, helps ease the discomfort of, because those are hard places to navigate. But I think the most important thing is really just centering your concern around your need. You want to make sure the person you choose is meeting your needs. It is your baby, it is your birth, and it is your body. And again, this is monumental, it's pivotal, right? In your life, there's an imprint that I want to say lasts forever, right? Indelible, generationally, forever memory, not only in your mind, but also in your baby's mind and in your partner, in your mother or your birth worker, support person, the doula. Everybody remembers. So important to make sure that you take the time out, due diligence, research for those practices that resonate with you based on your own value system that you create, that you find is most important to you. That was a lot. But it's an important moment. And I think we take it lightly, you know, just because someone has the acronyms or the title doesn't mean that person's right for you. So that's why I think it's important to have the conversations, those hard ones too. Have those conversations and schedule the Zoom or the face to face. But in this age of technology, I think Zooms are great, or FaceTimes, or whatever you want to use. But I think it's worth it. And sometimes you might want to schedule two. One wasn't enough. You really didn't get all your questions answered. You're still not sure. And so those kinds of responses that you get help you gauge whether this is the right person. Sometimes that, practice may not have time. That might sit well with you and be acceptable but for some that might not. So, use that as a gauge, if you think that's an important one. Um, and also The other things that might be important to ask a practice is how many clients do they take a month? Because you want to be able to choose a practice that can show up in the fullness of themselves, not a tired practice that is really working on air or not working um, in a more effective way. So you want to choose a practice that is really not stretching themselves too thin, is where I'm going with this. So what is important? Number of practicing midwives in the practice. So if you have a practice that has 3 midwives or 4 midwives, they have a larger capacity. So their patient, I want to say monthly patient roster might be 10 or 15 or 20. So, but if it's a solo practice or there are only 2, you might want to think about, how many clients do you take a month and, gauge that, will they be available for your birth? Certainly, if there's a solo practice and that person has 10 or 15, that is, in my opinion, stretching it. I mean, you do the math. Is Are you going to miss births? Are you going to be present? How many ancillary staff or supportive staff? They may have other midwives that work with them, other students, birth workers, and that's helpful. It really supports the practice well. So don't be put off by that. All of that support is really helpful for you in terms of, making appointments and follow-ups and labs. So, the more supportive systems that are in place for that practice, the better it is for that midwife. That midwife is supported well, you know. So that is an important question to ask. How many midwives or birth workers or supportive staff do you have? And the number of what's the limit, the maximum number of clients due a month will they take? And you have to use your judgment on that. Certainly, let me just give you an example for me. I actually am a solo practice, but I actually have another birth worker that works with me who is a midwife. And so we're able to take a little bit more. However, given the value that I place on time and self care and on family, I don't like to take more than 4 to 6 clients. That's my limit. So, all of those things are important for you to know. And those should be part of your questions that you ask that practice. So if you're just joining us, I'm Midwife Sakina Oyuhuru. And tonight's live is all about tips, jewels, and supportive supportive tips and jewels for those interested in embarking on a decision to have an out of hospital birth, a home birth. What are some things to think about? And so when I started out, I was just talking a little bit about really figuring out what's your value system, or what are some things that are important to you? Meaning, for example, is it important to have a midwife that's been practicing for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Is that important to you? And why? Is it more important for you to have a midwife that lives in your area or within 30 minutes? What are the important points for you? Is it important for you to have a midwife that brings the services to your home, meaning having prenatal visits in your home? Um, or is it important for you to have a midwife who shares similar value systems in terms of culture, ancestry, race, or religion? And it's really all about being honest with yourself and your family, your partner, whoever is making this decision too. What's important to you? Is the fee important? And so what's your max, And if let me just say a little bit about fee since I just mentioned it. When you hear what the fee is, most midwives have different packages, that include different add-ons, so to speak. For instance, they may have a base fee and then they have an add-on for a doula or add-on for water birth or add-on for lactation specialist care or something like that. Don't be afraid to negotiate. I've said that so many times, and it seems like it's taboo to community. Like people are just not advocating for themselves or not used to it. And so, most practices, we like to carve out a space for potential clients to advocate for themselves. It's like we're looking for you to do that. Some providers are more open to it than others. Some are absolutely against it. The fee quoted is the fee quoted. What's on their website is it, bottom line. But some are open to negotiation. And I would encourage you, if you are having financial difficulties, try and negotiate. Try and negotiate. But be considerate and respectful in your negotiation. You want to offer a reasonable reduction or accommodation or agreement. You want to come to a reasonable agreement, like go in between. Don't lowball. Lowball is they don't like it. Nobody likes it. And no industry likes to be lowballed. So, we value our time, and a lot of midwife practices give more than their worth, more than their fee. We go over and above the hours that we offer most of our clients are considerable. So yeah, I want to say, oh, hi, Blake Fun World. Thank you for joining me. So most midwives will go over and above their fee. And remember, they're doing counseling, nutrition counseling, health counseling, of course, mental health, social counseling, and then they're collaborating with other providers, unbeknown to you sometimes. They're offering ultrasound, lab work. Midwives do a lot. And then outside of all of that, we connect with our clients during off hours time frames. So, all of those things to me, are really important to know. Also important to know is if it's really valuable to you, is how long they've been doing this. How long have they been practicing as an out of hospital provider? How much experience do they have? You don't have to get into particulars about, oh, did you have an emergency? Or that is not important because let me just say this. If you've been practicing long enough, of course, you've had your emergencies, you've had your hypertension. All doctors, NPs, physician assistants, midwives, nurse practitioners, everybody have had their share of complications. Clients who were low risk and then become high risk, either prenatally or during the labor. So, yeah, I want to say that those are some important points to know. Experience. And also, then you also want to know whether is it important to you whether this midwife is a traditional midwife? That might be important to you. Some people think it's important to hire a nurse midwife. Some others think it's important. No, I want a CPM. Why? Because philosophically, how they think, because they're more whatever, or they're more nature based, or they integrate more. I want to say alternative modalities of healthcare They integrate acupuncture and homeopathic remedies. That's their go-to. So it's, what are you connected to? What resonates with your spirit? And I want to say you need to sit quietly and think about that, meditate on it, and really connect with yourself. And what are those elements about you want to see in your midwife practice? You want that practice to meet you halfway or to meet your needs. But also understand this is a partnership. It's not always we doing something to you. We're doing things together for the best outcome. So, yeah, I know it's a lot. So that's why I say it's really important to take time to sit with yourself so that you can really identify those values that are important to you and those things that you want to see in that practice or in that midwife. If you're just now joining me, I am Midwife Sakina Oyuhuru. I've been practicing the art of midwifery for almost 30 years, and I'm here tonight just to talk about some tools that expectant couples can use when they are seeking or researching home birth and home birth practices, things or tools, jewels that they should look for and use during their research. If you're just now joining us, I don't know if anyone has a question. Nope. Okay, no questions, no comments. All right, just making sure I am interacting with my audience. Thank you if you're just now joining us. I am Midwife Sakina Oyuhuru, trying to become a little bit more consistent in my lives around birth, birth work, birth justice, reproductive justice. So my lives will always center around home birth, midwifery, reproductive health care. That is all that I'm going to be talking about during my lives. Of course, we might veer off on a subject related to nutrition or high blood pressure, but basically, our language is all around womb wellness, reproductive health, and midwifery care, home birth practice. So if you're just now joining us, tonight we're talking about how do we choose the right practice? How do we go about planning for a home birth? What are some important uh, jewels I can share just to help you as you embark upon this journey? And so we were just talking about how to choose the right practice, the right midwife. We haven't even begun to talk about preparing the home, which I'll leave for my next live. But just as a recap, if you're thinking about having an out of hospital birth, I want to say you need to take time and sit with yourself, your partner, and think about all of those elements. First of all, the reason that you've come to this decision, and just be 150% cemented and committed to this decision, because you are going against the dominant culture. And so being very, very sure and very centered in this space is important. Know that you know that you know this is the direction you want to go in, because there are a lot of people, including family and friends, who are going to question, who are going to criticize and judge your decision going in this direction, because there's so much fear and fear mongering around birth, around home birth, around out of hospital birth, around midwifery. So, it's hard to unlearn those kinds of socialized ways or beliefs. But a lot of people are moving towards having home births. There's been a huge shift in birth settings and births that are led by or assisted and supported by midwives, a huge increase. And so, since there's been a huge increase, I thought it's important to help individuals who are embarking upon this journey what are some tools? What are some jewels? What are some things that you can think about? What are some things you should consider on this journey? And so I started off by really encouraging individuals to be 150% committed to the decision because it's challenging, this pathway. And then once you are 150% sure, then I would say go on to interview the practices, midwife led practices, if the decision is for you to have a home birth with a midwife support. Um, I don't know any other way, although I know there are individuals out there doing unassisted birth, meaning they're having their babies on their own. Of course, it's not unassisted, it's supported by their family and friends and partners. And so, will we talk a little bit about that? I'm sure we will during our lives and even during our webinar, which, by the way, is coming up next Thursday. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but we are having a webinar next Thursday at 7 p.m. It's a free webinar on Zoom, and the link for registration, you'll find it in my bio on Instagram, and the handle is Gentle Spirit Birth and A Woman's Way. And so during that webinar, we're going to talk, and I say we because we'll be joined by another co-host, midwife Ashley Davis. And so her and I both will be discussing pathways to the art of practicing midwifery, because there's so much, I want to say, misinformation, myths, and misconceptions around the pathways to becoming a midwife. So we wanted to offer some clarity around that, and not only offer clarity around it, but really delve into how to become a certified professional midwife, how to become a certified nurse midwife, the how to, the requirements, and not only requirements in terms of educational requirements, but what's the mental capacity? What really is needed mentally, spiritually, physically? What does it really mean to be a student midwife? And do I have it in me? Is this the path that I should take? You know, do I really feel spiritually connected to this? Do I feel called to birth work in this way? Because there's many ways to support the laboring person, laboring couple, and doesn't have to be in the role of a midwife. You can be a doula, also known as a birth support person, and they have so many names for it. But you can also be a postpartum doula, postpartum support person, a breastfeeding specialist, lactation counselor. So there are many, many ways to support expectant couples. Does not have to be in the role of a midwife. Although if you feel that this is your calling, we certainly want to be there or be able to discuss this openly and to help you make that solid, informed decision, because it is a huge undertaking. It is definitely more than a notion, huge responsibility, but it can be done if you feel that this is your purpose in life. And if you feel as passionate as I do about midwifery and about supporting couples and women, and people have the most, I want to say, transformative, joy-filled experience, then maybe it is. And so if you want to get more information on the how, and we will talk a lot about that. And we probably will break it up into 3 parts so that you get a full understanding of the responsibility and what it takes to really embark upon this journey. So, again, we look forward to it. We're really excited about it. I think we may have a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation, and show you guys some pictures and videos of our students in our program as well. But yeah, I look forward to it, and I hope you guys will join us. The link is in my bio on my handles on Instagram, Gentle Spirit Birth and A Woman's Way, AWOMBMANSWAY, or on Facebook, um, Gentle Spirit Birth and or A Woman's Way. I think the link is in the event that I posted in Facebook. So tonight we were discussing tips and jewels for those individuals that are interested in embarking on or finding more information on home birth. Like, what would be like the first things to do or think about, or what would be, and I was suggesting that when you are considering a home birth, to think about, are you just trying to get your feet wet, or are you serious? Are you really, you know, halfway in, or are you fully vested? Because that will drive your direction and your energy around doing your due diligence. If you are not really sure, I'm just thinking about it, it's a thought, but I'm not, then I would say go to your browser and put in home birth videos or research or, books. And of course, I'm going to recommend mine, Journey to Birth. Um, but there's so many. And we'll list some of those on our webinar next week. We'll list some of those books. But if you're interested in purchasing or reading mine, you can go to my website, awomansway.com, or Gentle Spirit Birth. If you go to Gentle Spirit Birth's website, you can purchase my book from there. And the title of the book is called A Journey to Birth. So, but to recap, if you are just now joining us, I'm Midwife Sakina Oyuhuru, and tonight we were talking about some tips if you're considering a home birth. And I was suggesting that you first create your list of values and items that you feel are really important for the practice to reflect. That's the first thing. And then also think about the values that are important for you, in terms of, how do you want this labor birth to unfold? And what do you think is important? And I'm going to get into those in a minute. When I say the values that are important to you for labor birth, I'm also talking about those things that are important to you during your pregnancy too, because there's a trust currency that should be developed, that should be founded, that should be nurtured. And those are important tenets to my practice, Gentle Spirit Birth, really creating a trust currency, because relationally, it's really important to develop trust and to develop a relationship, period. It's not a transactional relationship, meaning each encounter should go past it being transactional. That particular practitioner should be invested in your wellness. How are you doing mentally? How are you doing spiritually? Where are you? How are you doing? Are you working? Are you part-time? Are you full-time? Do you like what you do at work? Are you able to take FMLA? And when are you taking it? So those things to me impact your wellness. What do you do for stress? How do you cope with stress? So if you're not really, your practitioner should be talking about some of those kinds of things. Should be trying to find out all of those parts of you. you know um, they should be trying to understand who you are, because that helps them support you better. So that's what I mean about relationship and relationship building. It's like sharing those parts of yourself so that the person knows you well enough to know when today is an off day, you're not feeling your best. Um, Important so that you can really support them in the way that they need to. And so, one of the things that's really important is listening. Listening. How well does your provider listen? And does that person create the space for you to share, create the space for you to speak? And for me, I'm very intentional about creating the space to hear your voice. I want to hear you. I want to know what your perspective is. I want to know what are the things that make you anxious. What are some coping skills that you have in place already? And if not, let's create some together. What are your fears? What are some of your worries? Do you have any doubts around this? And it's okay to have them because remember, we've all been socialized in a way around birth. There's I want to say a pre-existing narrow-minded way of thinking about birth. And so that's unlearning is still present and something we all are working on. And that speaks to the shift. That's why people are moving more towards home birth and out of hospital birth because they're realizing, wait a second, this is really not a pathological process and it shouldn't be treated as such. I'm a healthy individual, and I want someone to respect me for that. And I want someone to listen and respect my perspective. And so that's what makes it important and valuable. What is it about this birth that you want to happen and things that you don't want to happen? It could be something simple. During my birth, I don't want you to touch me, or I don't want to be massaged, or I want you to hold me, or I don't want you to talk, or I do want candles burning and I want all of my family present, or I want to sing, I want to dance. I want to be able to vocalize in the way that I want to, whether it's loud, soft, murmurs. So, those are things that might be important to you. And so, you want to figure out whether the people or person or practice you choose can respect and value that. And that's it in a nutshell for tonight's topic. So, if you're just now joining us, thank you for joining us. Our topic tonight was about home birth and some jewels, tools you could utilize during your journey as you embark upon this home birth or out of hospital journey. What are some things, important elements to think about for you as a couple, and for the practice that you choose? I hope this was helpful. Um, there are so many layers to this and so many directions we can go into. And I'm trying to really stay focused. So there's so many areas to talk about in terms of uh, the home birth journey. And then we can talk about how do you prepare your home. But I'll save that for Thursday. So, yeah, this was great. I didn't get any questions, but I did get people who joined. And hi, like maybe I should say hi back. um, if you're just now joining us, thank you so much for taking the time out to listen to this live. I am Midwife Sakina Oyuhuru, and I have been practicing the art of midwifery for over 30 years. I started out initially in the North, New York, New Jersey area, did a little bit in Connecticut, and now I'm in the South, and I love it here, where my ancestors are, my mom and grandmother. So I'm here. I love it. We offer home birth services, and we also have a midwifery training school where we train individuals to sit for the board so they can become certified professional midwives. And we're going to be offering several webinars in our next upcoming webinar. Hey, one of my students said, hey. Um, our upcoming getting it all mixed up. Our upcoming webinar is next Thursday at 7 p.m. And the title of that webinar is Pathways to Midwifery, pathways to the practice or the art of midwifery. And we're going to talk about ways to become the different pathways or educational pathways to becoming a midwife, because there's so much information, myths, misconceptions, misinformation, and confusion around how to become a midwife. We thought it would be a great idea to give a little bit of clarity and inspire and encourage and empower individuals who are thinking about it but not sure. And I think it's a must. I think we need to really invest in knowing as much as we can so we have enough information to make an informed decision, because this is a pathway or a journey that should not be taken lightly. It requires a humongous amount of responsibility and time and energy and commitment and sacrifice, not only as a student, but as a midwife. It's a lifetime of commitment. And so, we just wanted to be really honest about it and help individuals who are maybe not sure, not fully sure. And so, it's important to help pass on information. And so we'll be holding that free webinar next Thursday night at 7. And you must register in advance. And again, the link is in my bio on Instagram at Gentle Spirit Birth. And also, I posted it in Facebook as an event, and the link is there too. And also at A Woman's Way, AWOMBMANSWAY on Instagram. And I think if you're just now joining me, I'm going to do a recap. Before I end, tonight's live was all about tips, jewels for those individuals who are thinking about having a home birth, an out of hospital birth. Some things to think about is really centering yourself, sitting quietly, maybe meditating, doing a little bit of breath work just to center yourself, both of you, and really, just making sure that you are 150% committed to this. The other thing is really sitting down and understanding, what are your values? What are you looking for? Or how do you want this pregnancy, labor, birth to unfold? What are some things that are important to you? And you can use those same values to help you interview your practice, your midwife practice. Is it religion? Um, is it location? Where the practice is location? Is it where the prenatal visits are held? Is it important to you to have home prenatal visits versus office or combination? What is the fee? Is that a priority for you? And do you have a limitation on the price, or whether that practice accepts, major medical insurance? Is it important that the midwife looks like you in terms of ancestry, race, or uh, gender orientation? Is it important lifestyle or culturally? So all of those things to me is so important. And most importantly is being honest with yourself, and really reflecting on, what are you committed to or centered in philosophically? How are you aligned? And do you want the practice to be mutually aligned with that, philosophically, or that value system? So I hope this conversation was helpful in some way. Again, we're going to talk about this more and more and more. There's so many levels to this. And I only, touched the tip of the iceberg. We just talked about your commitment and reason for deciding to have a home birth and how or what are some important elements to use during the interview process. That's it. That's all we talked about. We didn't really get into anything more, but that part is just as important as how to set up your home or how to remain safe or what makes you a great home birth candidate or what are some top benefits of having a home birth or there's so many ways that we can talk about out of hospital birth, home birth, birth center birth, midwives. But tonight we focused on that. And I hope again that was helpful. And I'm going to leave you guys this evening and look forward to our live on Thursday. So again, Midwife Sakina Oyuhuru signing out. And thank you for joining us. That was Chautauqua and Blake Fun World. And I can't really, yeah, thank you so much. I hope I was able to get to everyone who named themselves on there. This was a great topic, and I probably will pick up where I left off and add a little bit more. So much to talk about in terms of home birth, the pushback, the safety, the just the politics around it, uh, how we could use that as a tool or a solution to reduce maternal mortality, particularly in marginalized communities or Black communities. There's so much to talk about. And so, hence, our lives and our webinars. One more thing I wanted to mention, well, two more things I wanted to mention before I end. Not only are we having the webinar next Thursday evening at 7 p.m., register in advance. Links are in my bio, Instagram, Gentle Spirit Birth, A Woman's Way, and or look on Facebook. But I also want to mention that we are having a skills training for doulas, birth workers, midwife students, anyone who wants to sharpen their skills. One day, it's a one-day training, and we're going to focus on several areas: abdominal mapping, Doppler use, IM injection, vaginal exam, cervical exam. So if you're interested, go to our website, A Woman's Way Warrior Midwife Training, A Woman's Way Warrior Midwife Training. And I'm going to put it in the chat. If anybody's on there, they can see it. So you can click on skills training and register there. I think we have a discount fee if you register between now and I think, it might have ended October 1st. But then we have another discount. And I think as it gets closer to November 9th, full price. But I would encourage you to go on now to try and register for the discount fee. I'm just trying to see if there's any other questions and also make sure I post the link for the registration for our skills training November 9th. That's a Saturday, a one-day training. And you need to register in advance for that as well. And there's something else I wanted to, if you are considering or thinking about becoming a midwife, you can go to that same website and apply. We are still accepting applications for 2026. So again, if you feel like you have the calling to support women, expectant couples, people, certainly go to our website. But first, attend our webinar to be sure. Our website has an application. It's simple. Click on application to enroll in our program. I believe we have the criteria listed there. So I put it in the chat if anyone's interested in that. Again, thank you for joining us. There's a lot of information shared tonight. Next Thursday, well, this upcoming Thursday is our second part. And if you missed it, well, Thursday you can come and we'll do a recap. Thank you once again for joining us this evening. Midwife Sakina signing off. Good evening, everyone.